There's a ton of mysticism and confusion around how to grow a business, and especially in the real estate field, where there are so many different models or so many different ways to grow your real estate business. So, in this video, what I'm going to do is unpack how we have gone through from zero in 2020 to $288 million sold in 2025, and we are approaching 900 million sold in that 5-year span from 2020 to 25. So, I'm going to break down what got us stuck, or what rather got us unstuck from a halfway point, because almost all of that growth has happened in the last 2.5 years. So I want to share the main principles of doing this. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Christian Stubbs. I'm a team leader and owner of Onyx Homes. Like I said, we're a real estate sales team based in Southern California, Orange County specifically, and expanding out. So let me dive through this, and I'm going to share my screen here and just kind of walk through a very simple doc that I just drew up. And this is very simply put how we have been able to grow our business to 288 million in sales. That's going to close in 2025, roughly around there. And I even put just for a little bit of proof here, because a lot of people like to fudge numbers. We currently, at the time that I'm filming this, is December 16th. We've got 289 closed, with 13 more pending to close for the end of the year. So we might end up over 300, which is way over our goal. For reference here, our goals for the year was 250 units, or rather 288 units for 250 million in volume. So we have well surpassed our goals for the reasons I'm going to go through here is the guiding principles. And total GCI, our goal for the year was $6.5 million, which we're going to hit right on the nose. And I'm going to share a bonus here at the end of how we actually got so close to our projections on our numbers for what we projected versus what actually happened. But let me walk through a couple of major things. Now, if you watch my channel, you've heard me talk about these things before, but I'm making this message honestly more so for me and my leadership team to go through and revisit as we're going into business planning this week for the entire year. So the annual business planning is the most important, because we're not only covering just the first quarter, what are going to be our main priorities for the first quarter, but for the entire year. What are we going to be focusing on for the next 52 weeks? So first, I want to talk about the theory of constraints. So again, if you watch my content, you know that we dove into Alex Hormozi's content, his workshops. We've invested a lot of time, money, and resources into learning what they teach to grow businesses. And for us, honestly, it's probably the best or second best thing that we've done, because it just simply has worked. Easiest way to put it. Now, let me explain what the theory of constraints is if you have an assembly line, is the easiest way to explain this. And if I'm making mice or mouses or keyboards, let's say that, if I can make 10 keys per day and I can make 5 boards per day, as you can see, I'm not a tech person, then the maximum amount of keyboards you can make in a day would be 5, because you can only make 5 boards. Any time or effort you put into making more keys above the 10 you're already making is completely wasted time, because nothing will grow the business at all until you can make more of the actual boards themselves. And this is the same concept. And when we were first introduced to this, it's like, okay, yeah, but there's lots of different, we're not like in manufacturing, there's lots of different things that are making us not grow as a business. But the thing that is that has been the biggest unlock for us is, what is the number one thing? There are a million different reasons why you're not growing your business as fast as you want to be, but there's one that is holding you back from doing it. So I'll give a few different examples here. As when we started implementing this way of thinking into how we grew our business, the first thing was we needed to increase lead generation. So let me just walk through this. So the first constraint, now this was probably 2.5 years ago. The lead generation was a constraint because we had agents that were under capacity, producing agents that could handle way more leads. So what did I do? I went out to our lead providers, I went out to our advertising channels, and we did more advertising internally, and went to our lead providers and got all of that turned up. So about 90 days later, we had more leads than we could handle. And instead of going to lead providers and saying, okay, never mind, we don't need that much, we said, okay, well, how can we add more agents to the team so that we can handle this lead flow? So we went and turned on our automated recruiting funnel. And we did this by all the different things. I've made a lot of content. I don't want to get too much into the details here. But then we recruited more agents to the team. So we added lead flow and we added agents. What's the next thing that broke? Well, onboarding was actually the next thing that ended up breaking. So we made it one employee hire so that we could onboard more agents. And then we continued to, so that was the third constraint, was actually onboarding. We needed to hire an employee, an entry-level employee, to be able to solve that problem. And that allowed us to double our agent count from about 16 to 30, let's say, within a span of about 6 to 12 months. And then from there, the next constraint became lead generation again. And in transparency, that's where we've been. Now, mind you, lead generation has continued to increase and agent count has continued to increase. And we are still, I'll say, relatively even. But the only thing that's not 10xing the business is the fact that we are not directly in control of all of our lead flow. So I just walked through 4 different constraints in the business that we solved one by one. Was recruiting a problem when we needed leads? Kind of, but the leads was a more important constraint. Now, could I have got more leads when onboarding was the constraint? Yes, and we would have got more leads to the agents that we already had, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be more productive. So any effort that I would have put on anything else would have been a complete waste. If I would have added more agents, not been able to onboard them, that would have been a terrible experience for everybody. So when we bought into this idea, the hardest part is finding what is the constraint. And I think that's the part where most people miss when I talk to them about this, is it's not obvious. If it was obvious, you would have already done it, and you've probably already done all the obvious little tiny fixes in your business. It's the big, hairy, horrible, impossible to solve problems that you don't want to solve, that you don't enjoy solving, that are the things that are going to unlock the business. So that is number 1, is yes, the theory of constraints, and the thing I had to learn was the constraint is not obvious. This isn't always obvious. And figuring out what that is incredibly important. So that's the theory of constraints. The second thing I have on here is the CEO equals investor of resources. So this again comes from acquisition.com, but their idea of, I always kind of wondered as I am growing in my entrepreneurship journey, is I went from salesperson to sales, like manager of a few salespeople, to managing a marketing department, an ops department, a TC department, right? I still wear the run the business hat for everything, but at some point I have shifted more towards a traditional-ish CEO role where I am managing other leaders in the business. And I started asking myself, what in the world does a CEO actually do? And their definition is the best CEOs think about themselves, think like investors. And you are investing your resources. And in any business, your resources are time, money, and focus are the 3 resources that you have. So of that, you have time, meaning your person, like my time. What do I spend my time doing? What are your employees? What do they spend their time doing? And what is the focus of the company? You only have so much focus. So these are the resources that you have within the company. And your job as a CEO is to make sure you are using your resources to get the biggest possible return. This is where thinking like an investor is the important part. Here's an example. I was just doing an annual review with my marketing and my ops and everybody in my our admin team. And if I went back in time when we were really struggling, there was not tons of profit or any profit in the business, we just had to kind of do whatever it took to as much as we could get done is what got done, because there's no other way, where everybody's working tons of hours and the whole 9 yards there. So if marketing, for example, if we are putting out 100 things of marketing a month and we need to be doing more, but our 80 hours a week and the whole marketing department's capped and we can't add anybody, then it is what it is. We get out what we get out and we try to get better and more efficient and whatever. But as we have grown, and this is something we are now learning, which is why I'm sharing this, is our marketing department's putting out, let's just say 100 things. This is totally random. Just the numbers don't matter. But our marketing department's putting out 100 things per month right now. And we need to get to 200, let's just say. And the question is, what would it take to make 200 happen? And the marketing department has to change. Something has to change. And what we are looking at is our A players, our core people, are spending all of their time doing things. And what needs to happen is they need to focus on the most important, all of their time, or most of their time, more of their time on the most important things. And then the least important things are the things that don't get done. And with more resources, if it makes sense, if it's the constraint, we can come in and add more resources, meaning add more people, add more time, add more focus to get more done. So for example, this is in a very, very real way, where a $15, $16 an hour employee in a very real way for our marketing department could double the total output of the entire marketing department by adding a $16 employee. that is just going to take that bottom level stuff, the entry level stuff, so that our A players can go in and do the high producing things. And in the past, hiring that person was not an option. And you are probably in a position like that as where you're like, well, I can't just, if I just hired for everything, there'd be no money. Like there'd be a million, we need 10 more people and we can't afford one. So as you continue to grow, you have to continue to think, where can I add these resources? Because I can tell you right now, in my business, I need to hire like 15 people, and we can hire 2 this year. And who do we hire? Do we hire maybe 4 entry level, or 1 absolute A player rock star that's going to cost a lot of money? That's the question, right? How do you invest your time? So that's the idea of thinking as an investor is your job as a CEO. I have in our school community a full chapter on all the lessons that I've learned as a business leader. This section that we're talking about in this video right now is part of it, but this is the podcast lessons and part of a team building masterclass I've unlocked for free for you. So if you want to check that out, go to the link in the description below or go to school.com, that's schoolwithak.com/start, and I'll see you inside. Let's get back to the video. Now, focus on number 1. So the theory of constraints is the idea that there's one thing constraining your business from growing. The likelihood of a small business, there's likely multiple things. But this was the big unlock for us, is what would it take to 10x your business? So think about this very seriously. Like, what is the one thing that you could do that would 10x your business? And don't even think about how to do it at all. Just like, what is something you could do to 10x the business? And maybe it's a new lead source. Maybe it's a mastering a relationship. Maybe it is recruiting teams within the team. Maybe it is hiring one person. Whatever it might be, figuring out what that one thing is arguably the most important thing that the leader needs to do. Or maybe it's the leader of a department. If there's a director of marketing and this person's 100% in control of all things marketing, they need to probably know what is the one thing in order to grow their department and to generate more demand for the company. But once we have figured out that thing, for the last 18 months, that has been the only focus of all of our resources, is solving this number one thing. And for us, I'll be very transparent here, it has been in-house deal flow, meaning we are like proprietary deal flow. What that means is we are making, and here's how we're solving it, is we want to be in control of how many leads we generate per month. We want to be in control of how many deals are likely to happen from that lead flow. And we want to be able to control it. And most teams in the marketplace right now are at the mercy of how many leads their lead providers send them. And we are not an exception to that. Now, is it all of our business? Of course not. But it's a good chunk, and we want to make this other chunk better. So at the very beginning of the year, one of the goals that we set out to was we want to add an additional lead, a new lead source that is 10% of our total sales. And what we did was we added a lead source that ended up being 16% of our total sales. It was right around 15%. And we did this by pushing 2 buttons. And we were like, well, shoot, this is an easy no-brainer. But did we stop there? Absolutely not. We added this lead source. It ended up being 15% of our total. So technically we checked off that goal, but it didn't really feel like it was done. And not to mention, we want to scale it up more and more. So we have spent the entire last 18 months, 1, on the paid ad side, 2, building out our inside sales team, and 3, organic content. So we've been making YouTube videos like this, but for consumer facing, to generate leads for our real estate team. Look at the channels all about Orange County if you want to see what we're doing. And we have been doing this on YouTube for 2 or 3 years. We've done a few deals. Like, we've done a couple $100,000 in GCI. Not meaningful when we're doing $6.5 million in revenue to get another $100,000, but it's not nothing, right? And it has been working. So we decided this year in 2025 to go all in on social in like March or April or something like that. And we did that, and we're going to end the year here with like 12,500 followers on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. And what we have seen is that in the 9 months that we've been doing it, we got almost no traction for the first, not traction, but like we got 0 leads for the first 6 months for sure. And then in month 6, 7, 8, we got maybe 20. And then in let's say we're in month 10 right now, we've probably got 100 leads so far this month. And we have like 3 or 4 deals already pending from the organic content. And we are getting a massive amount of traction there. But it has been the only focus for the last year. on this one channel. And for the first quarter of the year, it was figuring out the strategy, planning, prepping for what is this channel going to be. And then in Q1 or Q2 it was just like get posting. Q3 it was like let's get better and do. Q4 is just do more of what's already working. And that is what we did all year long, and that is going to be a very meaningful lead source for us, with great price points, with great margins, with no referral fees. All those things are fantastic for the business. But this has been the number one thing. So the question is for me as the CEO and investor, do I invest more resources into this? What are those resources? What do I need to do? So I have my leadership team back at camp figuring out what would it take to 10x what's already working. That's the question we need to answer. And that's why I'm honestly making this, is what would it take to 10x what is already happening. And the other thing here is usually it is, I'm going to stick on this for a minute. So we've spent all of this time, money, and effort on the social, but going back to focus is the point here. There were 3 or 4 different times this year where I started to get distracted and I course corrected. And I think there's an alternate world where I did not course correct and we blew it up, and meaning like in a bad way. And I look at this as that's a mistake that I've made several times in my career in the past, and it is a mistake that I just refused to make this year. And there were several times where I was like, okay, we're going to spin this up, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We have the resources, we have the bandwidth, and I just said no. Never mind. All of the energy that and focus we would have put on this thing, put it right back to that. And I can 100% guarantee we would not be having the traction we are right now if I had allowed us to get distracted. And to be clear, this isn't my team getting distracted. This is me getting distracted and putting other shit on my team that they don't need. So that is the number one thing, is like my job is focus. I always have a word of the year. Focus has been my word of my year for the last 3 years in a row, and is 100% going to be the word for the next year as well too, here in 2026. But it's focusing on the one thing, not focusing on the 10 different things. And this is where addition by subtraction comes in. Is if I went back to when we were struggling the most as a business, it was 2021. We did really well. We felt, relatively speaking, we did really, really well in 2020, as most people did. We did really, really well in 2021 on paper, vanity metrics, volume, units. It was a big year. We doubled the business, basically. With no profit, I had to fire 6 employees. It was the worst, arguably the worst year of my life, and almost personally went bankrupt. And in that moment, it was addition through subtraction. If we were doing 10 different things, let's say for marketing, for whatever, just in general, if we were as a company were doing 10 different things, I cut 9 of them and we did just the one thing we did best well. And we only focused on doing more of that for the last 3.5 years. And from there, we went from 100 million a year to 300 million a year in less than 3 years, halfway through 2023 till the end of 2025. So really all of 24, whatever I just said, 2.5 years. And that was all through addition by subtraction. So we grew the business. We did more by doing fewer things better. It's not by doing less, it's by doing fewer things better. So that's the addition by subtraction. And what is the number one focus? What is this number one thing? If I just sit here and ask, okay, what if we 10x'd this lead source? One, we'd be generating tons of leads, tons of deals with great margins, and it would be fantastic for the business. But rather quickly, we are going to have a people problem on the ISA team. We're going to have a people problem probably on recruiting as well too. And then we will solve those constraints when we're there. I do not need to solve a problem in anticipation for it. I want to create that problem through doing too many deals and through having too much revenue come through the company. And so many times in my career, I have wanted to fix the next problem before this one's ever fixed. And then what ends up happening is we grow by like 10 or 20 or whatever percent per year, versus this year our goal was to grow by 30%. We ended up growing at 60. And the reason we did that is because we did not get distracted off of the main thing. So that's focus. That's the number one thing. And I want to end this here with the business planning and strategy. So I mentioned earlier that we did the acquisition.com, the workshops, and it was probably the second best thing we ever did. I think the best thing we ever did was implement EOS into our business. If you're not familiar with EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, read the book Traction. Maybe it'll be linked down below. It's probably up on my bookshelf over here. But I say this is this is the best decision we ever made, or I made as a leader to implement this, is because I think we would have gone out of business had I not done this. This is what gave me the clarity of how I wanted to run my business and the accountability of our actual leadership team to make it happen. So if I simplify EOS down to just its absolute core principles, you start with figuring out where you want to be in 10 years. That is your 10-year vision. Where do you want to be long term? What is the business going to look like? And this is, you want to be specific, yet you do not need to know exactly how to get there, so it can be relatively vague. So for us, when we made this was number one team in California by sides. And the reason I said by sides, this is specific, not vague, is I did not want to just go and be luxury team. I didn't really care. I don't believe necessarily that that's the model that is going to hit. This gets to kind of a more recent part, is this is not our 10-year vision anymore. This was the 10-year vision, but it isn't anymore, and we're trying to figure out how do we articulate what the new mission is. And I'll see if I can do this now for you. Is we see now, so let me also give you context, is that we started EOS in 2022 and we wrote our 3-year picture, and that 3-year picture is this year, 2025. And we are pretty much there. Like, we're very close to what we wrote 3 years ago. And it just sounded insane. I just said 2021 was the worst year of my life. So planning at the end of 2021 was just like, this sounds ridiculous, saying we're going to do 300 million, we're going to have 100 agents, we're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have all these different employees. Like, it just sounded like fantasy land. But that's what we wanted to do, and we've done it. So the 10-year picture, the original one is number one team in California. Then the 10-year picture now, I'm going to come to this at the end. So new 10-year, because we're 3.5 years into this, let's say. So the 3-year picture is what we set 3 years ago, is basically where we're at right now, which is crazy. Which brings me to a quote that I absolutely love, is most people will wildly overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade, which is why we're changing the 10-year, because we will, I don't want to say guaranteed, but we are, if we just keep doing what we're doing, we are going to be in the conversation of top, like, number one team in California by sides in 7 more years. Almost guaranteed. I don't want to say guaranteed, but like, we're doing it for sure. The 3-year picture is like, okay, this is feasible. And this is where the strategy question comes in. It's like, where are we going strategically? And then from there, you got your 1-year goals. Like, what are we actually doing this year? Who are we hiring? What are the departments? What does it look like? What is the number one focus? How are we solving the constraint? What is the units? What's the volume? What's the revenue? What's the gross margins? All those different things. And then from there, you come up with your quarterly rocks, where each department basically has a project that they're going to complete for the year that ladders up to those 1-year goals. Now, the 1-year goals on number one. So while we might write down multiple goals, the only one we care about is the number one. This is the only one that we actually care about at all, because nothing else in the business will matter if we can solve for that number one. For example, for us and our company, if we solve for the number one, which we're actively doing right now, we will be able to control our lead flow up and down. We will dramatically increase the margins of our business, meaning we can reinvest tons more money into the business and outspend our which we already can outspend a lot of our competition. We will be able to outspend all of our competition if we solve this one thing, both on the recruiting side, the retention side, and on the customer acquisition side for consumer leads. So recruiting will become even easier than it is now. Retention will become even easier than it is now. We will be able to add more value back into the business, and we will create a moat around our business that makes competing with us even harder than it is today. And if we do that one thing, nothing else matters. Will it take longer to maybe hit the vanity metrics that we wanted to hit originally? Number one team in California. Is this a slower way to get there? I can say with 1,000% certainty, this is the slower way to get there. But it is the better business overall that we're building. So this is focus on number one. And then your rocks are your 90-day projects that are peeled from your goals. So think of it like this. You take a goal. So if my goal is to, let's say, build an ISA, like get my ISA department doing, 5 deals a month. So if you don't have one, that's the goal for the year, is get an ISA department that does, that paces at the end of the year 5 deals a month. So in Q1, it might be talk to 10 different team leaders that have ISA departments and find the best ISA structure for you. That might be the whole first quarter. Second quarter might be building the training system, the learning management, LMS, the university for it, and then putting up the job posting and then starting interviews. And by the end of Q2, you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever ISAs placed, knowing that you're going to whittle that down to 2, whatever. And then in Q3, it's scripting and training and role playing and all the things to get it ramping up. And then in Q4, you're kind of tinkering, increasing lead flow. That is the idea. That is what rocks a 1-year goal broken down into rocks looks like. It's like Q1 rock leads to Q2, leads to Q3, leads to Q4. All of that leads to the big 1-year goal. And all of that should be focused on the number one thing. And then your weekly scorecards. So with my team, we meet every single week with our L10 meeting. So I should say L10 weekly scorecard. And this is basically an hour and a half, 2-hour meeting. Leadership team does every single week. And then we start with going over 10 minutes of the KPIs for the business, the key performance indicators, the most important numbers. So we look at a lot more numbers than this, but for example, we look at lead flow by source. We look at how many ISA calls, conversations, appointments held. We also look at how many deals, how many offers did we write, how many listing agreements did we sign, how many are in escrow pending, all that stuff, cash flow. We also look at how many recruiting leads, how many first appointments, how many second appointments, how many paperwork sent, how many onboarded, how many offboarded, how many do we have in the university. We also look at, right, you get the point. So we do this as a leadership team with each department owning their own numbers, and this is where the accountability comes in. And that scorecard is dictated by the rocks, the goals, and the number one focus. So if I was to simplify how we've grown our business, this is simply it. We follow the theory of constraints. We go through and we invest our time. I invest my time. I invest the resources as an investor, time, money, and focus. We have focused on the number one thing. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is the big one. And we just simply do the things. That's it. I explain this like I just simply do not allow our leadership team and our staff to not do what needs to be done. I just don't. And that is accountability. If you say this is what we're going to be doing for the quarter and we don't do it, there's a huge alignment problem, but you can solve that in a week and it doesn't have to be solved in a month. So I hope you found this valuable. If you did, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you like more detailed deep dives like this, you get a bigger access to me and my team in our school community. So if you want, go ahead and click the link down below in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.